Hi, today I want to show you how to build a text editor like VS Code inside of your Wized web application, which is a super cool use case if you are building, for example, an AI code generator, if you're going to build the next Wized or something like that, or any no-code, low-code, or pro-code tool. It is always a great use case, and you'll be even able to use different, like syntax highlighting and all of that. For example, I can do window, and you see, I will have that, that recommendations like I would have in Wiz, and I could do window.audio_buffer.bind.concat.color. You get the idea. So this is really cool. We're going to have the real Wized code editor in our web application today. So let's get right started. So we're going to use the Monaco code editor, which is the one that Microsoft spent millions of dollars having that available to us for free. So we just need to add a code embed. By the way, Webflow changed the name from HTML embed to code embed, which I think is really a cool thing to see, that Webflow is moving more into code, more into logic, more into power, less landing pages, which is good to see because, we're going to build web applications on this. So we're going to add the code embed here, and we are going to add some interesting stuff. We're going to add a div with an ID of editor, because the Monaco code editor is React based. So it uses the root or React DOM or something like this to attach the component on an HTML component as normal React would work. So we need to give this item an ID, and then we need to specify on which ID we want to render it inside of the code we add in Wized to then have that editor on our page. So then we add some easy inline styling. By the way, there was like a study recently made figuring out that inline styling is, I think, 2.7 times faster than CSS. So use inline styling. We add some inline styling in there. It's super easy. That is it. And then we have to load our dependencies. You don't need to have Babel or like Prettifier standalone. But I like to use it because Babel is pretty cool. It turns it into real JavaScript that your browser can handle. This is just for prettification. The real code editor happening in here is the Monaco editor at latest. This is the code editor that we want to add, and we want to add it as an HTML component. That is it. And now we're just going to wait a little bit, and we're now going to go to our Wized project. So now we only need to create one run function to render the Monaco code editor. By the way, this is the same one that VS Code uses. And we can have that right now in the browser web application that we're going to build in Wized. Which, by the way, it is the same one that Wized uses. So, it's pretty cool. So we're going to add the Wized code editor in here. It's also the same one that FastGen uses. If you go to create a new API route in FastGen and add the custom code block in here, and let's do Python. Wonderful. You see that they are also going to use the Monaco code editor, the same one that Wized is using and the same one that we're going to use here. So, it's a good code editor. So we're going to do event-based action, meaning this happens when, logic is performed on the page rather than when you click on an element. And then we're going to do run function. This allows us to run any JavaScript code inside of, the Wized configuration file. Because Wized is just, it's just a JavaScript file that you load as a dependency on your Webflow project to then, work as a framework. So, this is how we're going to run that JavaScript code in there. So we're going to do, and this is ChatGPT helped me with that. So, I may not understand everything that was written in here, but we have to do require.config paths, and then we need to load the VS Code dependency once again. And then I'm going to do require VS Code editor main function window.editor manager. So we're going to define the editor manager on the window of the page. If we define it on the window of the page, that means it is accessible for everything. Wized can access that without having to use their JavaScript API. Webflow can access that, and so on, which is pretty neat. And then in here you see that window.editor manager is an object which we define right in here with configurations, as every SDK we would work with. So we define the window.editor manager, and we're going to define it on a specific element since this is React. So what we need to do in this configuration here, we have this value editor, and we have monaco.editor.create. This is the function to create the editor in a specific element. And then as you can see here in this function, we are targeting a specific element on our Webflow page, which is document.getElementById editor. So this will be attached to the element, the HTML element, as you can see here, with the ID of editor. It will scrape that site, it will find where that is, and it will render it inside of this div block. And this is how React works client-side, right? Because we're going to import like the npm package or something, and we're going to, it's JS deliver. So it will be an npm package, and we're going to import that npm package, which is webpacked, because React is JSX, so it's not real JavaScript. It's kind of like its own thing. So they web packaged it, converted it, probably using Babel or something, into JavaScript. And then we can run this React web application, which is probably very heavy. This is why you should be gradual when using SDKs, into JavaScript that can then run and render those elements and all of that, and create this code editor. So this is why we need to attach this to a specific element. And then, since in this configuration here, which is the window.editor manager, will equal the object, meaning the configuration of this, which will be then attaching the specific element here so we can render this configuration in there. We also need to provide some data next to it of the value, where I can just add an array here of, with a join filter. I can add an array with a join filter to then, have the sample text pre-added in there on multiple lines. You could leave this blank if you want to start blank. But if you look into how FastGen does it, they use the same principle too, to give you like a little hint. And, Wized does some of that up here, and so on. So we can have that in here to, show some example text at the beginning. And then I have language, JavaScript, you can use TypeScript, Python, and so on. Then I have line numbers, you can do this on or off. What that will do is it will show us the line numbers right here. And the cool thing is we can, expand those things. And it's like the Wized editor and the VS Code one. And it's free. That's the best. That's the best part about it. And then we have automatic layout, true. And then we have a padding. This is very important, because if I were to remove this, the padding will not look as pretty. So I'm just going to do padding top 20, set top padding to top 20. PX, like you can change this however you want. You can do 50, 150. Don't add too much, otherwise I'll just see blank screen. But you can do that. And then we're going to define some functions to do common editor functionality. So I have get text, where we are defining a function to, get the text. I have add text at the end, where it will add a new line. It will start at a new line and add more text. Probably very interesting if you're going to work with AI text. And then we have clear text, which, as you can guess, will clear the text. And when we want to call this function, we have to call the window.editor manager. So as an example, let's create a function and let's call this get text, just as an example how to use those functions, because they already work. So let's do page finishes loading, and let's do a run function, or maybe let's do a variable, set variable. I have my v.ai code. I can do return. I'm going to do window.editor manager, and then I'm going to do .get text, open, close. And as you can see, I will be getting the text that is in my code editor, just like that. I can also go to my other function, which is add text at end, just like that. And I can, change that up. I can add text at end, open, close. I have to add a string in here, and I can say, I did this, smiley. Look at that. I can run this, and we will see that we have added I did this. Look at that. Within our code that we have here in the text editor. And then we have clear. We're going to wipe out everything. We have clear text, which is pretty cool since I already wrote that for you as a predefined function. You just only have to add that, after window.editor manager, which is pretty cool because you don't have to use any Wized variables. And since you attach it on the window, this object is a global object. It's accessible within Webflow, within Wized, within whatever other tool you're going to use client side. And the cool thing here is that it gives you the flexibility of not having to be tied to a specific framework, to use the JavaScript API and to introduce more code to make simple things work, which sometimes happens when we're using low code, because those tools are simplifying it for us for simple use cases. But if we have an extensive use case, this is when their simplification really holds us back, and we have to do way more work to go around the simplifications to do the thing that would normally be not that hard. So, this is why we're going to do this outside of Wized, but we're going to write the code inside of Wized because this is where all our code lives, but we're going to attach it on the window outside of the Wized JavaScript configuration objects, because at the end of the day, this is what Wized does too. But we're going to define it globally so that our configuration is not inside of the Wized window, but rather is its own window on the page, so it is universally accessible. Pretty cool. And then the cool thing is now if I run this, you will see the code is cleared. And, now I can, if I reload that, it will be in here. And if I run this function, it will be cleared instantly. And the way you do the function is window.editormanager.clearText. Now, something I'm not completely sure of, but I want to try in this video is technically, let's use this button here. And I could, if I, let's add a custom element in here. We don't even need to use Wized for this. We can add an onClick, and I can add my function on here, and I have to make this a button. Look at that. We're going to use inline superpowers. Boom. Let's add the class of button. Here you go. And, let's add a nice icon in here. Or let's just add some text. Let's call this clear. just like that. And now, if Webflow is not trying to ruin our show, it possibly could work. So I have my code, I click on clear. It's not doing it. Okay. So maybe we need to do a little bit more. Unclick. It should work. Maybe I have a syntax error in here. Now I want to ask ChatGPT because I'm curious. So, how to run on element click only using inline attributes. Interesting. Okay, so we would... Okay, I could do onClick, clear text. Interesting. So I can do an onClick attribute, which I have, like here. And in here, let's see. Because I think, you know, you always have to experiment with things. Let's look at that. Since it's attached on the window, it should work. Maybe it needs to work outside of Wized. I have my code in here. Okay, so then, you know, this is why we have Wized. But, you know, since it seems like Webflow may be holding a little bit back on some functionalities, because if I do on click normally, it will say, oh, I can't do that. It is reserved. So, no worries. This is why we are going to use Wized for that. I just wanted to, you know, see maybe we can save some actions with that. But what I could possibly think is that we could define, actually, I think this is a good idea. We could define a global function in Wized to only use one action to manipulate the href, and then have Wized basically like capture what happens on the href and then perform certain actions using its JavaScript API, which is pretty much a lot of code. But you know, just use actions. And then we can do like v.array, and you see I have my code editor. And then let's say I want to add, I'm going to do window dot editor manager, and I'm going to do get text. Let's just get the text function. Oh, I have to do return. And I probably spelled it wrong. Let's double check. Let's copy this. Here you go. Oh, look at that. And you see I have my text here. That was a typo. But I can get the text. I can add text based on those functions here. If you go in add text to the end. And the cool thing is, if I want to add text to the end, I'm just going to add this as a string, but I can still, you know, add like any form of JavaScript in here. Of course, I need to have it as a string. So let's say, give me the JS as a string formatted using /n to, yeah, that should be it. Okay, perfect. Here we go. We got that text. I can now simply copy this in this format. And we have that in here. And you see it already ran that function, and that code has been added to our editor. So if I load this here, I'm going to run this function, we are going to see that the code has been added programmatically inside our code editor, which is super cool. So this really shows you how powerful Webflow and Wized is. You can build a little dummy version of Wized, and I'm hoping that I'm not going to get any copyright issues for basically ripping off their UI for this video. But yeah, if the Wized team is seeing that, please, this is just for educational purposes. I should have said that at the beginning of the video, but you know, here you go. This is how you're going to add a code editor inside of your Wized project. Now, the super cool thing is you can build an AI tool inside of Wized that will generate AI code for your users. Think of it like this. You can have users like upload Figma sketches or flow charts and have like a deep learning AI model go through them and then give them full code to implement their business logic that then is tailored for Wized, and you can build like a whole tool around the Wized community for the Wized community, and you know your issues that you're facing and you know how to help people with those issues because you had those ideas. You know, okay, if this, then have to do this. So there are really endless possibilities, not just building things in Wized, but also helping the Wized community build things way faster, better, and easier. And there is also, I think, a great economical value in there, especially if you pair this, if I'm talking to anyone specifically that has this idea, I would highly encourage you build a Wized AI assistant if it is, of course, good enough that it can actually help people, because Wized is a little bit sleeping on that, right? We don't have any AI Wized assistant as of right now. So I think maybe if you're very smart in what you do, you're a JavaScript expert, maybe now is the time to use this clonable to, come up with an idea to make an AI assistant to help others, and maybe even just for internal purposes. I think that would be very cool, especially for agencies. Think of it like this. You run an agency that does Wized development, and you know that if people are using Wized, they more than likely don't know what they're doing in code. This is the reality. This is why we're using Wized, because we don't know code. And if you are now all of a sudden have a universal tool, so where everyone in your agency gets the same kind of JavaScript code based on training and so on and so forth, and they have it in an easier to use interface, that streamlines their workflow, I think that is a great tool also to work faster and to ship projects faster. Also, maybe since this is already React-based, you may even, if you're watching this, anybody build a Chrome extension for Wized, right? Because I could see a cool Chrome extension happening where what happens is when you click here to expand the window, first of all, it gives you the editor full screen, just like that, and then you will have all AI functionalities in this code editor, and it will just, we have the get text method and all of that, where I can do get text, and what it could technically do is then, get the text and, just inject it in the Wized editor, which I think is a pretty cool idea, and I need to do this as a function. So, I just want to give you the idea that there are also cool use cases within your profession and within your day-to-day operations life for something like this. And yeah, I think this is where the future may be heading, that we're going to see more and more community-based Wized projects and Wized products, because I think if you can provide the value, you had an issue, you learned out of it, and now you can help people not make that issue or not go through that obstacle because you already went through it and you learned from it and you got wise from it. I think this is really smart, maybe to start building some cool tools that will help us all in the community. So just as an idea to whoever has to hear this. And, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all your time, for all your wonderful comments, for all your wonderful messages on Discord. I really appreciate that. And I also want to give a special thanks to Ray Deck from State Change, because without him, I wouldn't be able to understand what I'm doing in Wized. And I really want to say thank you, Ray, for all your patience, for always explaining every little detail, because I was at the point where I knew what I do in Wized, but I don't know how it works. I asked myself the question, how does an iterator work? Like, I know how it works, but why does it work the way it works? Like all of those things. And, there is no documentation telling you how Wized works. But for me, it was always very interesting. How does this work? Like, I know I'm doing it like this, but how does this work? So, Ray always helped me. And thanks to Ray, I can understand what I'm doing here. And, I just want to say thank you, Ray. Without you, I wouldn't even know what a DOM element in React is. So thank you so much. And, thank you so much to all of you watching the video. I really appreciate all of you. And see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.